Hello there, YouTube. This is the Rogue Gem Player coming at you with a Dinomorphia deck profile. It's time to profile it. Thought I'd get it done. This is not the Supreme King variant that you've been seeing floating around. It's kind of my interpretation of the deck. It does play a couple other things that you normally wouldn't see in the deck, and there's a couple things that it is missing compared to those decks, and mainly just because either I don't have the cards on hand or they're just not my preference. So let's start with the deck. We're going to start with 3 copies of Dinomorphia 3cia. She is the best card in this entire deck. You want access to this card. You want the ability to instantly get any of the traps instantly is amazing. It gets around Ash. It gets around, things like that. It gets around Droll. It's one of those cards it's very hard to stop, or it's very stopped by very specific things. And then the ability to just, when you have, turn it into a 2k beater when you have low life, which is pretty cool. And then when sent to grave, you banish a trap to bring it back, or do a special summon at level 4. Then her partner in crime, 3 copies of Diplos. On normal summon, if your life points are lower, you do 500 damage, but you can send a Dinomorphia card from deck to grave. It's mainly in here. He's mainly in here because he's a name. Unfortunately, one of the problems with the fusion traps is you need at least a target in the deck to summon off of it, which is unfortunate. But it's one of those cases where we just don't have any names. One of these days they'll give us more targets, but when he is sent to grave, you banish a trap to bring back a Dinomorphia from the grave. So the whole purpose of this will get you access to 3cia to reuse her effect, and then 3cia floats into Diplos, which floats back into 3cia in the short term. So it's a good resource loop. That's the only main deck monsters outside of the non-engine stuff, which is 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. In my opinion, you still have to play this in every deck just because it's that versatile. And then, kind of a one-off thing is I'm playing 2 copies of Droll. There's just the stuff that it does hit, or is kind of the stuff that Ash doesn't hit. It does jam your opponent for a turn, and we're still in a tier 0 format. We need to prevent our opponent from adding cards, searching, that type of thing. Maybe when the when new things come out, that'll change. So that's all the monsters. Now we go on to the very small spell lineup. So it's mainly consistency stuff. So we're playing 3 copies of Potash Prosperity. You will burn through your extra deck. You're gonna go through maybe a small portion of it, and mainly this is in the event. You use this card to dig for your 3cia, your traps, whatever you're looking for. This is gonna get you into it because the deck needs consistency wherever it can find it. And because you generally do not special summon on your turn, usually you're special summoning on your opponent's turn, we can play 3 copies of Pot of Duality. It's been a while since I've actually played this card. This card, it's another consistency card. When you're going first, you're going to go Prosperity, you're going to go Duality. You're not special summoning during that turn anyway, so it doesn't prevent you from playing anything. So it's one of those cases where you can dig into 9 cards off of the effect, because Prosperity is going to bottom deck, and then you're going to Duality for 3 more, and then it shuffles your deck. So it's another consistency card. And then, unless there's a better card called by the grave, you should kind of still have to play it. It does address certain problems, and it's just kind of one of those cards where if your opponent plays a big graveyard deck, you can jam anything. For traps, 3 copies of Dinomorphia Domain. This is the main fusion spell. So the way how the deck works is Dinomorphia traps all have an effect where they pay half to activate an effect. Okay, because it's always pay half. Mind you, you're always rounding up. So when you get to 1 life, you always round up. So you never actually run out of life points using this. But the main thing is that the normal traps, you bet when your opponent would inflict effect damage, you can take no damage from that. The counter traps prevent battle damage, so keep that in mind. But this is kind of one of those. During the main phase, you pay half. Fusion summon from hand or deck or field materials to make a Dinomorphia fusion. So this is kind of one of those. If you don't have access to Thresia, this will give you access to it by getting a Kendra on the board. And then the other one is Dinomorphia Frenzy. This is kind of like the better version of Domain, except you can only play it on your opponent's main phase. You pay half to send materials from extra deck, from one monster from the deck and one monster from your extra deck to make materials. So this is the only way to make Rexstrom from the without having setup on the board. So keep that in mind. And then for the remaining traps, so we're going to the last major 3 of, which is Dinomorphia Intact. This is kind of basically it's basically kind of like a Divine Wrath. You pay half, you negate a monster effect. In addition to that, for the rest of the turn, anytime you take damage, it is always half of your life points. You always will win. And then because it's a counter trap, you can banish it to negate battle damage. So if you activate this effect, you're not going to die on the turn, but you do need to have a Dinomorphia card on board, by the way. And then during the next turn, you can, when your opponent tries to beat over you, you can just banish this and you take no damage. So pretty cool. And then for the 2 ofs and 1 ofs, the 2 copies of Alert. This card is pay half to special 8 stars worth of monsters from your graveyard. They can't attack during the turn. So in this case, you can either special summon the level 8, the level 6s, or you can summon 2 of the level. You can summon a Diplo and a Thresia. And then 2 copies of Brute. This is basically destroy a Dinomorphia monster you control on 1 card your opponent controls. It's removal. That is searchable, and because your Dinomorphia cards activate when they're destroyed by a card effect, you always float into something. And then for the spell and trap negate, we are playing 1 copy of Sonic. It's searchable, negate a spell trap, so it's kind of like intact in a way. And then kind of like for generic stuff, we are playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment because this card says it says no. This card says no. It's a counter trap that is always live. Negates stupid stuff. You can play warnings, strikes, and things like that, but they pay a set amount, and you need a very specific card in the extra deck to kind of play them no matter what. So keep that in mind. And then for generic stuff, 3 copies of Imperm. If you have access to this card is amazing, and you play a lot of back rows, so your opponent is never going to realize, oh, you have a Imperm set. And then 2 copies of Ferret Flame. So what this card does is, if the combined attack of all face-up monsters your opponent controls is higher than your life points, your opponent must make your opponent shuffle face-up monsters into the deck, their choice, except 0 attack point monsters, so that the combined attack of the monsters remaining become less than or equal to your life. So this card can basically say, nuke your opponent's board, if played correctly. And it's kind of one of those, because you're always paying life. So now for the extra deck. So the extra deck is basically very specific. It's gonna play 9 monsters, because we're playing 3 copies of all the Dinomorphia fusion monsters, and then some random extra deck stuff that you can kind of make it what you will. So the first thing is 3 copies of Kentragina. So she is probably the best card in the entire deck. She requires 2 Dinomorphias with different names, and then she's a 4,000 beater, but she never comes out that way. She always your attack is loses attack equal to your life. So when you pay half to go to Domain, she comes out as 0, and then when you pay again for another effect, she goes to 2k. She is level 6. And one of the main things is that you can, during the main phase, you can pay half to banish a Dinomorphia normal trap to copy its effect. So you can go Domain into Kentragina and then go to Domain again to get another monster, if you need to, or Frenzy into this. It's kind of one of those. It becomes any normal trap that you need. And then when she dies, she floats into a level 4 lower Dinomorphia from the graveyard. So she's the best one. And then we were playing 3 copies of Rexstrom. He is the level 8, and he does require a Dinomorphia fusion. This is the reason why we play the next card, the next fusion mainly in here, and that why Frenzy says we need to use a extra deck monster. When he's on board, your opponent can activate the effects of monsters that have attack equal or greater than or equal to your current life. So if your life points are lower than their attack, it basically skill drains their field, for the most part. And then quick effect, you pay half to the attack of all your opponent's monsters become equal to your current life. So you pay half, they become whatever number. And then if this card is destroyed, it floats into a level 6 or lower. So it goes from Rextrum into Kentrodina in this case. And then probably the worst Dinomorphia fusion in the entire deck, but kind of you have to play it because of Frenzy, and that is 3 copies of Stealth Bergia. So Stealth Bergia isn't bad per se. The only problem is that he doesn't do anything on his own, unfortunately. He doesn't really push you to your game state. He's not really a big beat stick because he does have zero attack with 25 defense. But one of the main things is that while your life points are 2,000 or less, every trap card that pays life to activate or Dinomorphia effects, you don't have to pay. So you don't have to pay for Judgment. You don't have to pay for any of the Dinomorphia stuff if your life points are 2,000 or less. So keep that in mind. Also, when your opponent does activate a monster effect, you can inflict damage equal to your opponent's, equal to that monster's original attack, which is actually pretty cool. So it's a once per turn you can just burn your opponent for no reason. And then he does float into a level 4 lower when he does die. But he's mainly in here because he is the ditch target for Frenzy, to kind of summing out Rextrum. That's the main purpose. That's the main purpose of him. There are situations where you will summon him. It's completely up to you how this deck works in your eyes. He is you do mainly banish 1 or 2 copies for the prosperity in most cases. So, but you can also cut 1 if you want. And then for the extra deck, it's kind of just whatever you want it to be. You've also Dolka and Lagia. You are playing dinosaurs. It's a level 4, so you have Monster Negate, another kind of like Summon Negate / Spell Trap Negate. So it's kind of one of those. They exist. You can play them. And then Abyss Dweller, Dugaris. They're kind of filler mainly. Dugaris is actually not bad because you can make this off of an alert. You go to alert on your opponent's end phase, and you can make this to bring back any of the fusions if you really need it. Also, draw 2 cards if you need it. So, and then we're playing IP Masquerena and Access Code. It could be whatever you want in this case. I mean, mainly it's in here because there'll be events where you have alert and you can kind of float into monsters to go IP into Access Code, and now your Access Code is kind of protected while being able to nuke something off the board. So. Yeah, it's a cool deck. I just kind of the only major complaint I have with the deck is it wants to play outside support. You can play dinosaur support in here, like Ultimate Conductor and things like that. But right now, what we do need is another main deck monster to make the deck kind of go around. Maybe a Spell Trap to help with it. Maybe another extra deck monster that makes Rextrum seem like an ant compared to it. So. Let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.